إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد, we're still talking about the belief in the angels. I think we started that last week. What's the last thing we spoke about? About the angels.
The authentic ones, the ones where knowable, and the ones that there's nothing authentic about them.
Right, so we said the ones that we know their names is Jibreel, Mikal, Israfil, Malik al-Maut. Well, it's a title, it's a name. I mean, depends. That's what we call him, whether it's and then Harut and Marut, and we know Malik, who's the one who takes care of Jahannam, or who's the guard or the custodian of Jahannam. And these are the ones that we know that's authentic. We talked about some of the things that are weak, that some people speak about. For example, Munkar and Nakir, who are the two angels that come to ask the questions in the grave. The hadith about this are weak, as well as speaking about or saying that Israfil is the one who blows in the horn to announce for the day of judgment that the first one, everyone will die. And some opinions is that the first one will be the warning, or it will terrify everyone, and then the second one the people will die, and the third one everyone will rise up again. Tying this action to Israfil, the evidence for it is weak. Also Mikal or Mikail, the ahadith that speak about him being the one that brings the rain down, these are also weak as well. So there's a number of names that are weak. Also a number of actions or ties to certain malaika that we do know their name, but the belief in the certain actions we don't know for sure. Like we don't know exactly what their job or what their duties are. So next we'll speak about we'll speak a bit more about the angels. So we know for Jibreel, what's authentic is that he was the one who brought the wahi, and who would bring down the wahi to the prophets and the messengers. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, من كان عدوا لجبريل فإنه نزله على قلبك. So that whoever was an enemy to Jibreel, then he's the one who brought it down, meaning the Qur'an, upon your heart, or to your heart. So we know that he is the angel that was the one who brings down the wahi.
What verse was it?
I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know.
Surah Al-Baqarah,
Yeah.
Ayah 99 or 98.
So next, that was just one of the things that we know what the duties are. So we know Jibreel is the one who brings the wahi, and that's something that it's throughout the Qur'an and throughout the Sunnah. So that's not really an issue that needs to be discussed in too much detail at this point. Next is to speak about some of the characteristics of the angels that we do know about. So the first one is, it's come in hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that the Prophet ﷺ said, خُلِقَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مِن نُور وَخُلِقَ الْجَانُّ مِن مَارِجٍ مِن نَار وَخُلِقَ آدَمْ مِمَّا وُصِفَ لَكُمْ. Or that the angels were created from light, and the jinn were created from the spark from fire, and Adam was created from that which was described to you. So meaning...
So this is a hadith from Aisha?
No, from the Prophet.
From the Prophet?
And this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, so it's authentic. So and what the Prophet ﷺ is saying here is that he's describing that the angels were created from light, the jinn were created from fire, or from a spark from the fire, and that Adam was created from what was described to us. And we know in the Qur'an Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions at certain points that he was created from clay, and also we know that humans were created from water and clay, so it's the mix of the two. Yeah. So this is what we know that what they're created from, and that's essentially what we have. To go into too much more detail about, well, what are they? If they're created from this, then how are they solid, or their physical state and all this kind of stuff that we wouldn't go into. We stop at what has come to us in the Qur'an and the Sunnah, and we don't go beyond that, whether we understand it or not. Also, if we look to the Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes a number of things about their characteristics. So one thing is, we know that the way they look is extremely, they have a beauty about them that we can't, completely understand. And this is, we know that from the Surah Yusuf, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing what the wife of the king, when people began to speak about her love or her infatuation with Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. Then people began to speak about her, so she wanted to show the people why she was in love with him. So she brought people over to her house, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions of the story of what happened. So then when so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, so فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ أَكْبَرْنَهُ وَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ وَقُلْنَ حَاشَ لِلَّهِ مَا هَذَا بَشَرٌ إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا مَلَكٌ كَرِيمٌ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that when they saw him, they said, or they were mesmerized by his beauty, and they forgot what they were doing, even to the point where the fruit, if you look into the tafsir of the verse, the fruit that they were cutting up, they went beyond it and started cutting their hands even, because they weren't paying attention anymore. And they said, it's impossible that this person is a human. Indeed, he is only a noble angel. So, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't mention anything about this being wrong, in the sense that their understanding of or the way he looked, or his beauty, that I guess how you could say that the fact that they assumed that this could only be for an angel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't rebuke them or didn't say that this was wrong. So this shows that they have, or the way that they're created, is something that this is from the characteristics of it. And also we know from the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, or in the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah, that he said, أُذِنَ لِي أن أحدث عن ملك من ملائكة الله من حملة العرش إنما بين شحمة أذنه إلى عاتقه مسيرة 500 عام أو 700 عام. Or that the Prophet ﷺ said, I've been given permission to speak about an angel from the angels of Allah, who's from the carriers, or from the ones who hold up the arsh, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne. And he said, the distance between his earlobe and his shoulder is the distance of 700 years. So this is, it's one hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ is explaining, about the angels, or that he was given permission to speak about this. This hadith is narrated by Abu Dawood, and it's an authentic hadith. So this is just, it shows the greatness of, how the angels were created. And one of the points in knowing this is that if we know that this is something that we can't even understand, but it's from the creation. So what would we think about the one who created these things? So the point of knowing these things, or the point of the Prophet ﷺ teaching us these, or one of the points, is that it gives us an understanding, or not a complete understanding, but a cause for thinking about the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we see that even when we see things in our daily life that are great, or things that are amazing in the way that they're created, that this is cause for us to say subhanallah, and to think about the power of Allah, and the wisdom and the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if it's something that, we can't even understand that. That's bigger, people if someone traveled the earth on a boat, it wouldn't take, a fraction of that. So think about, even if something, even the distance, even if we were to say that the distance is in the speed of walking only, 700 years walking, think of the distance, and that's just between his earlobe and and his shoulder. Also we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Qur'an, Alhamdulillahi fatir as-samawati wal-ard, ja'il al-malaika rusulan uli ajniha, mathna wa thulatha wa ruba'. Or that the meaning of which is, Allah, all praise and thanks is to Allah, the originator of the heavens and the earth, who made angels as messengers with wings, 2 or 3 or 4. So we know that they have wings, obviously, and that the numbers of the wings differ. And it could be 2 or 3 or 4, and if there's any, and we know that in the hadith that Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that he had 600 wings. First one.
And you said Jibreel that has 600 wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we could go way more.
Yeah. So just I mean, we could maybe say from that because Jibreel, I mean, he's not at the level of any other angels. So, but maybe generally this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them. But it isn't a restriction in that they're all like this. It could be,
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just this is how they are, but there's other characteristics to them as well.
Now, this is we're talking about in terms of like the physical description of them.
Right.
Okay, but not their level. Or actually, are they all in the same level?
No, inshallah, we'll talk about that too.
Okay.
Yeah. But
so it is authentic that the Prophet ﷺ did see Jibreel.
Yeah, he saw him twice in his actual form. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it twice in the Qur'an. There's a hadith that the majority of the time that he would come to the Prophet ﷺ, he looked like one of the Sahaba named Dih. So he would look like one of the Sahaba. So, but that's the one that he would most likely or usually would come in the form of.
Because he was so beautiful, they say, right?
Allah Alam. Yeah, I'm not sure.
His name's Yahya,
Dihya.
But is that, would he take the form of someone, or is that like his original form, like in the form that he would come in as?
Like, I mean, would he copy the form, or that's just what he looks like?
Right, yeah.
Well, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would let him change into that form. Because his natural state is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Prophet ﷺ mentioned of what he looked like, of his size and the number of wings and all that, and that
Right,
those descriptions.
Yes.
And the Prophet ﷺ only saw him like that twice. And the rest of the time he would be in different forms. And we know in the other hadith that this whole chapter is based on in the hadith of Ibn Umar or Umar ibn Khattab. When he came to teach them their religion, no one knew who he was even. So it was a different form then even.
So no one really knew him from that community.
They couldn't. Yeah, they didn't know. He did. They said no one knew him, and he did. Like so, they knew he didn't look like he was a traveler because he didn't have anything. His clothing was right. So and no one knew. None of us knew him.
So he wouldn't be in the form of Dihal.
At that point, Allahu Alam, unless it's possible, and no one knew him. But I mean, we don't know for sure.
It's very unlikely.
Probably. And also, like you just asked about their levels. So we know that all the angels aren't at the same level. And the evidence for this, I mean, there's many, but I'll just try to mention one evidence for each thing in this chapter. The hadith from Rufa'a ibn Rafi' that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Jibreel, or the hadith is, أن جبريل جاء للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال ما تعدون أهل بدر أو أهل بدر فيكم قال من أفضل المسلمين أو كلمة نحوها قال وكذلك من شهد بدرا من الملائكة. Or from the hadith of Rufa'a ibn Rafi' that he said that the Jibreel came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, what do you consider the people of Badr to be amongst you? So how do you view them, or what's your opinion of them? So the Prophet ﷺ said that they are from the best of the Muslimin. So Jibreel said, and likewise the ones from the angels who participated in Badr. So this shows that the fact that he's saying that when the Prophet ﷺ said from the best of the Muslimin, this is clear that they're obviously at different levels. There can't be a best of something if they're all at the same thing, right? So then when he said same and likewise, or this is how we view the angels that took part in Badr, then obviously we know that they're not at the same level, because there can't be a best of the angels if they're all at the same level. They can't, best implies, that something is better than something else. So this, we'll stop there specifically about angels. There's lots more that we could go into, but I'll leave that to maybe to a different book of Aqidah that if we get into later on, just because this is supposed to be a very basic level of Aqidah. So the point of it is just knowing when we say we believe in the angels, what does that mean? So just to recap, it means that we believe in their existence. Second, we believe in the names that are authentic, and we believe in the duties that are authentic, that the Prophet ﷺ or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an or the Prophet ﷺ in his Sunnah taught us. And then we believe in the characteristics that we were taught of the angels in the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And we believe that there's things that we don't know, obviously, and however Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it, then we believe in it in general. So we say, the things that we know in specifics we believe, and the things that we don't know in specifics we believe in general. And we say, however it is, or however Allah made it, then we accept it. So we'll stop there with regards to the angels. The next is belief in the books. So if we're following the hadith of Jibreel, and when the Prophet ﷺ described what Iman is, the next thing is belief in the books. So this includes a number of things. It includes belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually reveals books. And it includes belief that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke these words. So He didn't create these books and send them down. He actually spoke the words, and Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam would take it and then bring it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or any of the other prophets, or they would receive the wahi in whatever means or whatever means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to receive it. So we know some of them would receive it, some things would come, that the angel would come clear to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Other times the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would hear like the ringing of a bell, and then when it would stop, he would know the verses, and so on. So we believe this in these things in general. We also believe that we believe in the specific books that were mentioned, which we'll go into in a little bit. Also that the Qur'an is the last of them, and that the Qur'an has cancelled out every Sharia that has come before, and so on. So these are some of the things that when we say we believe in the books, that this is some of the things that it includes.
All the books are the words of Allah, all of them, right?
They're all the words of Allah, yeah.
But they weren't all preserved, except
they
for
weren't
the
all
Qur'an.
preserved, no, yeah.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
I was listening to, somebody was talking about this, and he was like, a scholar, a good scholar from Al-Sunnah al-Jama'ah, and he's like, the difference between the Qur'an and, for example, the Bible that even that Isa alayhi salam got, was that the Qur'an, it's the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sense where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's all like when you read it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for some verses He criticizes Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La ilaha illa ana fa'budni, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. So it's the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as in like it's coming out of His mouth, and we're reading it in the point of view, like there's different point of views when you're reading.
Yeah.
It's like the point of view of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You get what I mean?
First person?
Yeah, first person in a sense. But for example, like the Bible, when you read it, it's different. Well, it's not like that. You get what I'm trying to say? It's not as if like when you're reading it, it's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually speaking it to you.
Allahu Alam, it's like when you speak about these things, it can be a very dangerous topic to start analyzing or trying to explain things too much. First of all, like we can't say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke it from His mouth. I mean, we don't have any evidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a mouth in the Qur'an or the Sunnah, so we don't say that even. I know what you mean though, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke it in reality.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, like to say, like we don't know how the book that Isa alayhi salatu wasalam had was, because it's not preserved. So we don't know what's from the Bible that they have now. We don't know what was originally there. Even the things that are true in the Bible now, we don't know, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say it that way? Has it been changed into, technically it's right, but someone wrote it in their own words? Like, we don't even know. So we say that originally when it came down, it was the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it was directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we leave it at that.
Okay, so
And same thing with the Tawrât. The only difference with the Tawrât is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote it with His hand.
Don't get into these topics, basically.
Right, so it's
stick
just
to what we know.
Yeah, I mean, because then we can never go wrong with that. But once you start to say, well, no, if it was like this, and the Qur'an is different because of the, unless you have a very, very specific text about it, you're speaking about something of the ghaib. It's like saying on the Day of Judgment that the earth's going to look like how do you know? And that's about just the ghaib issues. Now we're speaking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically Himself. So it's a very
going astray becomes very easy when you get into stuff.
Shane, just a quick question about before the Bu'itha, Rasulullah was the book, the Injil, was it preserved up to that time so people can be guided, or was it like
No, it wasn't.
it was like people passing on, like we learned from Surah Al-Buruj, it was a Rajul Kabir or Shaykh, and he taught his student, if you will, and then that's how the word spread. It was like kind of...
Yeah, it wasn't preserved, at that time, because what do you mean preserved? Like in book form, you mean?
In book form, in paper, something.
Oh no, yeah, it was, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that that they would read it in books.
Oh, okay.
It was?
Yeah.
Like the original form?
No, not in the original form.
Oh.
He's asking, was it in a book form? That's what you're asking, right? Yeah, it was in book form.
But the original message was preserved in some places, but it was a dying breed, basically.
Well, even in when the Prophet ﷺ went to Waraq bin Nawfal, there was 2 or 3 left around anymore. It was almost nothing.
Yeah.
You mentioned Tawrât was written by Allah,
Yeah.
wrote it with His hand directly.
Yeah.
Is authentic.
Yeah.
Or Tawrât was written by Allah?
Yeah. So again, we'll just go back. So I'll mention some of the, those are the topics that were included in this. So I'll mention some of the evidences and how it applies to the topic. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل من قبل هدى للناس وأنزل الفرقان till the end of the verse, and that's from Ali Imran, verse 2 to 4. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking or saying that He is the one who sent down the book to you, so upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we know that obviously it came from Allah, and then He mentions that before that He revealed the Injil and the Tawrât and the Injil. So we know that all are at the same level in the sense that they're the words of Allah, and that they came from Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed them to the prophets who they were revealed to. So we say that they're the same in that sense, but obviously they're not the same in other senses, that the Qur'an is for all of mankind, it's preserved, it cancels out or abrogates the shari'ahs that came before, and so on. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَا التَّوْرَاةَ فِيهَا هُدًى وَنُورٌ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again is affirming that He is the one who revealed the Tawrât, and we know that the Tawrât was the one, or the book that was revealed to Mûsâ alayhi salatu wasalam, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a little bit.
And what verse and ayah is that? A verse in Surah?
Al-Ma'idah 44.
Shaykh, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says إِنَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ التَّوْرَاةَ, you can't make
أنزلنا التوراة.
we can't say that if He spoke it or wrote it from that sense, or we just know how would you understand إِنَّا نَزَّلْنَا? Would you understand that it has been revealed?
It's been revealed. It doesn't mean like the Qur'an was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke it. So how was it revealed to him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would speak it, and Jibreel would tell it to the Prophet ﷺ. So the fact that it's revealed to the Prophet ﷺ doesn't mean he didn't speak it or anything like that. So there's it's not like there's a contradiction between the two.
Yeah, okay, but so يمكن what I'm trying to say يعني إِنَّا نَزَّلْنَا, it doesn't mean because إِنَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they were revealed the same way. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was speaking at one point about the Qur'an and the other point about the Tawrât, we should understand from these ayat that we have revealed to you.
Yeah, so we don't say that everything about them was the same.
Okay.
We just say that it came from Allah and He revealed it. And so we know that they're all from Allah, but the different details about different things doesn't mean that everything has to be exactly the same. Yeah. And we know also that during that, after these books were revealed, we know that the people began to write it, or write their own opinions, or write their own whatever they wanted, and claim that it was from the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah, أَفَتَطْمَعُونَ أَن يُؤْمِنُوا لَكُمْ وَقَدْ كَانَ فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ يَسْمَعُونَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ يُحَرِّفُونَهُ مِن بَعْدِ مَا عَقَلُوهُ وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. So that's from Surah Al-Baqarah 75. So which the translation of it means, do you have hope that they would trust you, or that they would believe in what you're saying, or believe what you're saying, that you can trust them, that there's a trust between you, while some of them used to hear the words of Allah, then they would change it after they had understood it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is affirming that these people would change the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after it was revealed to them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions that they would write it with their own hands and claim that it was from their book. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَوَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَكْتُبُونَ الْكِتَابَ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ ثُمَّ يَقُولُونَ هَذَا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Or to woe unto those who write the book with their own hands and then say that this is from Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning here, clearly stating that people would write their own things and then state that this was from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we know that it's kind of a topic where it's tough to get into, because we don't have lots and lots of information about it, and we don't, many groups have went astray in speaking about these topics because they've tried to explain more than actually has come to the Prophet ﷺ. So it's a dangerous way to go, or dangerous path to go into this issue without knowledge. In any case, so we'll speak about the books that we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. So the first book that we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed is the Tawrât. And this, like we said earlier, it came to Mûsâ عليه الصلاة والسلام. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا أَهْلَكْنَا الْقُرُونَ الْأُولَى بَصَائِرَ لِلنَّاسِ, which translates as, and we had given Mûsâ the book after we had destroyed the earlier generations, as a clarity to the people. And that's from Al-Qasas 43. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that He revealed a book to Mûsâ. And if we look to the Sunnah, in the hadith of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, in which the Prophet ﷺ is describing the situation on the Day of Judgment. And we mentioned a bit about this before, that when they want, or the people will come to the prophets asking them to intercede on behalf of the people because they can't stand it anymore and they just want the judgment to begin. So the first person they go to is Adam, like we spoke about before, and then he will mention that he's not the person who should do it and he'll mention his sin. And then they'll go to Nuh, or he'll say, go to Nuh, who was the first messenger to the people. So we spoke about this before, about when we spoke about the messengers, and that Nuh was the first of the messengers, and this is the hadith. Then they'll go to Ibrahim عليه الصلاة والسلام, and he'll say, لست هناكم, ويذكر خطيئته التي أصابها ولكن ائتوا موسى عبدا آتاه الله التوراة وكلمه تكليما. And that's from Al-Bukhari. So they'll go to Ibrahim, and he'll say, I am not the one who is sufficient or the one who should do this. And then in the end of the hadith he says, but go to Mûsâ, who's the one who Allah gave the Tawrât to, and he spoke to him with his speech. And that's from Sahih al-Bukhari. So we know here that Mûsâ received the book and that it was the Tawrât. And we know that, or I guess, what we spoke about before, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَتَبْنَا لَهُ فِي الْأَلْوَاحِ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مَوْعِظَةً وَتَفْصِيلًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, which is from Al-A'raf 145, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about Mûsâ, and he said, and we wrote for him on the al-wah, or the tablets, from everything as a maw'idah, or an admonition, and a clarification for everything.
What verse, right?
Al-A'raf 145. And it's narrated from Ibn Abbas and others that they said what was meant by this was the Tawrât.
Is that the verse that proves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually wrote it? وَكَتَبْنَا لَهُ?
It's general, yeah, but there's a hadith that I'll mention right now that's more specific about it. So, in the hadith of Abu Hurairah, in which Adam and Mûsâ had an argument or had a debate, it's narrated that the Prophet ﷺ, when he was describing it, he said, قال له Adam, so meaning Adam said to Mûsâ, يا موسى اصطفاك الله بكلامه اصطفاك الله بكلامه وخط لك التوراة بيده. So this is the the specific evidence, and that's it's in the Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. So in any case, whether we say that the Tawrât was what was in the al-wah, or in the tablets, or if we say it wasn't in the tablets, regardless, even though if we look at the two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that He wrote in the tablets, or on the tablets, and in the hadith of Abu Hurairah, that Adam said to Mûsâ that Allah wrote the Tawrât for you with His hand. So whether we tie the two together or we say that they're separate, but in any case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know that He wrote the Tawrât with His hand based upon this hadith.
So
and how He wrote it, we don't go into that. We don't say, all we say is that He wrote it because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this hadith that He wrote it. How did He write it? We don't go at all beyond what this hadith is, because even this hadith itself, we wouldn't know this information except that the Prophet ﷺ told us. So for us to then say, oh, it means like this, how do we know that? The only thing we know is from this hadith, and that's all the hadith mentions. So if someone comes and says, no, it's like this, or how could it be like this, or what do we say about this, then we say, you know what, this is what we have. We can't, no matter how much we try, we can't go beyond this, because we don't know.
What was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all we can say Allah wrote with His hand.
Right, because even this information, how do we know this information? So before the Prophet ﷺ said this, would anyone know this?
No.
So when he says it, for this, then say, oh no, and it's like this. Well, who are you to say? I mean, even the thing that you're talking about, you can only talk about because the Prophet ﷺ told you. So that's kind of why it becomes dangerous when people go beyond.
You were saying before about how you know if he has a mouth or not.
Right.
Does this mean that he does have a hand?
Yeah, for sure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Qur'an, and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the Sunnah that He has a hand. So there's a number of attributes that we know He has, only because they've come. So for example, a face, eyes, shin, foot, hands, shin.
Is that
Is that shin?
Shin, yeah. So there's a number of, and we only know that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us.
Are these all through hadith or the Qur'an, or?
The face and the hands and the eyes are in the Qur'an and the Sunnah, and the shin is in both as well. And the foot is in the Sunnah.
But we know that Allah, from the Sunnah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has more than one hand. He has two, right? Because Ibn Rasul said, and both of His hands are right.
Right. Yeah.
And these are all in the her foot that's in the Sunnah. Is that from the strong hadith?
Yeah, it's in Bukhari and Muslim.
The one where he steps over Jahannam.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, when we comes to the attributes,
Yeah.
you don't go into any details. Even unless we have a text about it, we don't go into any details. Like when you say, let's say a saq, That's it. It's a saqa. That's it.
Right.
You don't go into it's like this or like that.
Because we can't, right?
Yeah.
Because if the asl or the thing that we're speaking about, the basis, we only know it from the wahi.
Yeah.
So if the wahi didn't tell us more, how can we then have details when the actual thing itself we only know from the wahi? Like
Let's say
it's
someone like out of ignorance, he start talking about or start describing it or.
Then we just tell them anything you say now, it's not going to have evidence, right?
Yeah. But it's dangerous, isn't it?
For sure, because I mean you're speaking about not only it's the ghaib, you didn't see it, so it's you didn't see it, you don't have wahi about it, so I mean it's you're speaking about something that you didn't see.
No, but how dangerous it is? Like, I mean, is it considered like you might do?
It
like
might take you out of Islam
out
for
of
sure,
Islam, yeah.
because you're speaking about Allah, so you're saying Allah is like this. Well, how do you know? So you're saying I mean it's
You're giving attributes to Allah that He might not have. Or-
exactly.
Yeah.
So how could we say it's acceptable for someone to say this is how Allah is?
Do these actually happen, these arguments, Shaykh?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
There's
lots.
actually
People
big
like-
sects.
Big time.
Big ones.
Yani they describe the attributes that have been affirmed, because I know some of them deny
All
the
of them.
attributes of Allah. But so there's actually sects where like
It's less, but
Oh,
it is
okay.
out there, yeah.
But
Oh,
like,
المشبهة يعني.
Mushabbah, you know.